On the way out, I felt that I had seen a small child's bag, overnight bag, and felt like I needed to see what we could do to make sure that we tried to get that child out. Things got crazy. I was unable to see anybody before I brought that last victim out, but I do remember that and feeling that I had left somebody behind. When we came out from the bus, we went up the second time and we handed the last of the victims off to the Eckerd College kids. Again, they were having a little bit difficult time getting them in the boat, but they eventually got them all in except one, which was the bus driver, which they appeared to lash to the back of the boat. While we were down on that second dive, apparently the Coast Guard was notified, and they had come out. I think it was in a white sumac to that scene. Also on that Coast Guard cutter, I understand, and I only understood this recently, was the governor. The governor was in town that day. And
Really?
Yes.
On the Coast Guard boat?
That's correct. He was in Tampa at that time. And he was notified over at Tampa at a meeting, and he jumped on, I think it was the white sumac, and went down there.
That was Graham, right?
Yes,
Bob
Governor
Graham.
Graham, yes. And so he was on that site with the Coast Guardsmen.
Huh.
So he may have heard some of the reports. I understood that we were not enthusiastically welcomed out there, and that there was a complaint that we were interfering with an operation. So when the Coast Guard arrived on scene with the governor, the Coast Guardsmen notified our supervisor, who was in the boat, that it was time for us to leave, which is what we did.
Well, how much later did the Coast Guard arrive?
We had recovered 7 victims, I'd say, in about 20, 25, 30 minutes.
Yeah, about that. They were probably in the vicinity already. They just
they were on their way
made
down
their
from
way to
Tampa. They were on their way down from Tampa. The first divers, according to the Times, hit the water at 9:12, and that would have been the Eckerd College divers. Some of the first victims were reported arriving at the Potter's Pier over at Fort DeSoto at like 10 o'clock, 10:04.
That's like 2 or 3 hours after the boat
Correct.
hit the bridge.
Yes, yeah, something like that. So, some of the people had been in, still there. So,
Yeah.
So we did what we could. They did send somebody over. We were asked to leave, which we did.
Yeah, the sheriff's boat was out there as well.
Sheriff's boat was out there. Marine Patrol boats were out there. A lot of boats were out there. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. So we did as much as we could. And there's no doubt in my mind today that had we been left alone, that we would have either recovered everybody or died trying. None. No doubt in my mind then, no doubt in my mind today. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, we had plenty of air. It was relatively shallow. We could have gotten everyone out.
We wish we would have been left alone, but it was such a commotion and stuff. Like I say, everybody did the best they could. The kids were fantastic.
And that's just speaking about the bus. There was assorted other private
Right.
vehicles in the water.
There was 35 people total that
Correct.
died.
Absolutely.
Falling off that bridge, right?
Absolutely.
And how many people of them were how many of the 35 were in the bus? You know?
I'm thinking 20. I want to say
Yeah,
23. I want to say 23 off the top of my head.
And were the rest of the bodies recovered from the other individual cars, or?
Eventually, they
Yes, the last victim was recovered on May 14th. Was recovered about 3 miles east of the bridge. That was the last victim found
3 miles
floating.
east.
Found floating, yes. Yeah. Several victims had washed up on Egmont Key, Fort Soto Park and stuff. So they had recovered all the bodies by the 14th of May.
Good Lord. What do you guys do after that day? Like after that happens, you guys go home, and how do you, I mean, it's not just business as usual after that, I don't expect.
Go ahead, Mike.
It was business as usual after that.
Was it?
Yeah. We were working the next day, back out there the next day.
At the Skyway?
Oh, yeah.
And for many days afterwards.
For me, it was a little bit different because for me, after we were asked to leave, I kind of needed to plan our next step and find out what was required of us. Like I say, it was still, as far as I was concerned, an active accident investigation scene. The National Transportation Safety Board was called in from Washington. They needed some information in regards to the location of the debris on the bottom, how it collapsed, what it looked like, etc. When we left that scene that morning, we went back to the yard. We brought our dive gear down to the tackle shack, and that's where we rented a camera.
Yeah, 16 millimeter movie camera.
16 millimeter movie camera, and we got 4 50-foot rolls of film.
Yeah, there was no video then.
No video back then. 4 50-foot rolls
We
of
used some
film.
How much did that cost?
We don't know.
Actually, I don't think Lou charged us for that camera.
I don't think so.
I think he had it. It was his camera. He just gave it to us.
It was a personal camera, and he understood the gravity of the situation, and he trusted us, trusted Mike.
The guy at Tackle Shack?
Yes. Yeah.
Was Andy there when you guys went there?
No.
That was before
Andy.
Andy?
This is Lou. This is
Okay.
This is Lou Levine. This is Andy's dad.
Oh,
Andy
okay.
and Jimmy and Steve's dad.
Okay.
So they we got our gear there. He had all of the gear that we needed. They took care of us. It was difficult because he understood what was going on, because 4, 5, 6 months before that, a short time before that, the Blackthorn had gone down in the channel. And that was still partially obstructing the channel during the accident as well. It was still part of it in there, and they had to relocate part of the channel to get around that while they were removing it. We talked about that Blackthorn. We spent some time out there. So he was aware of that type of recovery, that type of emotion and stuff. He understood and called me later on that night and talked to me and asked me if I was all right and if we were going to go back and what we were going to do, which obviously I knew we were going to after we had our equipment. We were in contact with the bosses over at the office, the bridge office in Tampa. They told us what they needed, measurements for as many photographs as we could get. We were not... much to my displeasure, but for whatever reason, we were not invited to provide any information or help or input on the recovery of the remaining victims. But that's okay. We had a job to do. They had people to do that.
I feel like you took sort of like a lot more personal responsibility in this than you were required.
Yes and no. If you read, there's a book that was written about the Skyway. And I think the governor, when he was out there, one of his comments, and I only really realized it recently, was that at the time of that accident, I think it was even at the time that he was there on that scene, his number one concern was nothing other than recovering as many victims as quickly as possible. So for me, maybe I took it personally and trying to do what I could. Mike's a Navy man. You don't leave anybody in the water.
Right.
I'm a Marine.
Right.
You don't leave anybody behind.
Yeah, I feel like that's something that may have been the reason that you felt the way you felt, that overwhelming sense of responsibility. Because I think most people, just an average everyday diver, would have maybe not done what you guys did.
That's probably true, but you need to understand that was our job. That bridge fed my family. That bridge and all those bridges provided leisure activities as well as work. So yeah, it was personal. I feel at times that I need to defend that poor little thing, that poor little bridge, because it certainly didn't jump out in front of that big boat. Yeah. But it was a nice little bridge, and we enjoyed it. So like I say, we probably did, but I think people can understand why I take it personally. I was responsible for making sure that when people went across it, it was safe.
Right.
So yeah, every bridge that people go across, I feel responsible for. So I take some pride in that. I didn't know Mike does.
Sure.
You sign your name to that, saying that it's okay.
Now, during that time, right after that happened, a lot of people blamed the ship captain for that. And I understand from watching the documentary that there was an ongoing public court trial going on where the government was trying to prosecute the captain of the ship. They were calling him an alcoholic. They were calling him incompetent, everything under the, calling him everything, trying to blame him for this because they were trying to find a quote-unquote scapegoat for this. What was your guys' opinion of the whole situation following the crash, following the.
I personally didn't know very much about the pilot, Mr. Laro. I didn't really know
John
anything about
Laro?
him. Yeah, I didn't know anything about him, so I really never dwelled too much on that. He was eventually completely exonerated.
Right.
So it wasn't an issue with me. I didn't pay much attention to it.
I, on the other hand, when that occurred, and I think that, and I hope that people can understand, my perspective when people say the Skyway accident is the accident and the victims and the faces of those victims that I saw on that bus and that I still carry with me. So I see it as personal. I was there right up close and personal. Can't get much more.
Some people fault him, I think, because he did have a rather cavalier attitude prior to the accident. And I think his quote was, "We're going to shoot for the hole," meaning he's going to try to go right down the center of that channel between the main piers, and hopefully he wasn't going to run into it. He wasn't sure, I don't think.
In 70 knot winds and torrential downpouring rain, right?
That's right.
It's difficult to say. I can guarantee everybody that he did not wake up in the morning and say, "Boy, you know what? I'm going to go out and smash into that bridge and kill some people."
That's right.
So it was determined to be an act of God.
Right.
Back when it happened on that day, I probably would have said something or gotten into a confrontation had I ever bumped into him. I felt that way for many, many years. I have been offered numerous opportunities to sit down and talk to John Lero. Bob Height, a local anchor, wanted me to speak to
Really?
him. Asked me to go ahead and talk to him and see if I could, and wanted to. For years, I could not. I could not accept the fact that he did what he did. However, I can say that I have evolved.